Let's be completely honest with each other for a moment. You are exhausted. And I don't mean the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. It's that deep, heavy ache in your chest that makes even waking up feel like an achievement. You've been running on empty for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to just exist without waiting for the next crisis to hit. Before we dive into how we unpack this weight, do me a favor. Leave a comment below with this simple affirmation. I am allowed to rest, and I am worthy of healing. Let that be your first step toward pausing today. Because right now, you need to hear it. You've been holding everything together for everyone else, playing the strong one. But your inner self is begging you to finally drop the shield. Think about how much energy it takes to keep up appearances when everything inside feels like it's collapsing. You wake up, put on a brave face, and step into the world because you feel like you have no other choice. People look at you and praise your resilience. They tell you how amazed they are by your strength, how you always seem to handle everything with such grace. But inside, you are screaming. You are screaming for someone to notice that the smile on your face doesn't reach your eyes. You are screaming for someone to look closely enough to see that your hands are shaking from the sheer effort of holding the pieces of your life together. It is a lonely kind of suffering when your survival skills are mistaken for inner peace. Every single day, you add another brick to the load on your shoulders. You carry the expectations of your family, the demands of your job, the silent worries about your future, and the unhealed hurts of your past. You carry the conversations you wish had gone differently, the words you wish you hadn't said, and the love you gave to people who didn't know how to hold it. You pack it all away, tucked tightly into the corners of your mind, promising yourself that you'll deal with it later. But later never comes. Instead, the pile just grows higher, and your steps grow slower. You've become an expert at moving forward while carrying a mountain. But just because you are carrying it well doesn't mean it isn't heavy. This weight alters how you experience the world. It turns small tasks into monumental hurdles. It makes the sound of an alarm clock feel like a threat. It makes you look at a beautiful afternoon and feel absolutely nothing. Because your capacity for joy has been crowded out by your capacity for endurance. You have become a spectator in your own life, watching the days blur past from behind a wall of numbness. This is what happens when you don't give yourself permission to stop. Your mind and your body start making the decision for you, slowing you down, clouding your thoughts, and pulling the plug on your enthusiasm just to force a moment of stillness. It takes an incredible amount of bravery to admit that you can't do this anymore. It is not an act of weakness to say, I am overwhelmed. It is an act of profound honesty. You have been treating yourself like a machine that only requires more fuel to keep going. But you are a human being. You possess limits, and you have reached them. That doesn't mean you have failed. It means you have tried to be strong for too long in ways that were never sustainable. It means your inner self is finally crying out, demanding the same care, tenderness, and patience that you so freely give to everyone else around you. So, let's just sit here with that truth for a moment. You don't have to fix it right this second. You don't have to map out a grand plan to change your entire life by tomorrow morning. All you have to do right now is acknowledge the burden. Feel the pressure in your chest. Notice the tightness in your shoulders, and acknowledge how incredibly hard you have been working just to stay afloat. Validate your own pain. Look at yourself with kindness instead of frustration. You are tired because the path has been steep, not because you are weak. Let yourself feel that weight fully, without trying to justify it or brush it away, because you cannot drop a burden until you are willing to admit that you are holding it. There is a quiet, brutal thought that tends to creep in when the exhaustion reaches its peak. It whispers that you are too damaged to ever be healed. You look at the pieces of your past, the mistakes, the betrayals, and the silent battles, and you think, this is it. I'm fundamentally broken. It is a terrifyingly convincing feeling. But feelings are not facts. When you feel beyond repair, it's usually not because you are unfixable. It's because you are trying to rebuild yourself using the exact same expectations that broke you in the first place. You are expecting a wounded version of yourself to carry a mountain, and then judging yourself when your knees buckle under the weight. When you have been hurt repeatedly, or when you have spent years navigating disappointment, your mind starts to look for patterns to protect you. It tells you that you are the problem, because if you are the problem, at least you are in control of the narrative. It's a strange, heartbreaking form of comfort to believe you are permanently ruined. It means you can stop hoping. It means you can stop trying to open your heart, because you've already decided the outcome will be disaster. But that isn't truth. It is just a defense mechanism born out of deep pain. You are looking at your life through the lens of your worst moments, allowing the people who didn't know how to love you, or the situations that drained you, to write the final chapter of your story. Think about how unfair that is to the person you are still becoming. You are looking at a snapshot of your grief and mistaking it for your identity. You might feel like a collection of sharp edges and shattered dreams, but those fragments still belong to you, and they can be rearranged. We often mistake the messy, painful process of undoing old habits for evidence of our own failure. When a life falls apart, we assume we are falling apart too. But sometimes, things have to dismantle themselves so that something authentic can take their place. The version of you that tried to please everyone, that stayed silent to keep the peace, that ignored its own boundaries. That version is what is breaking down. And that is not a tragedy. It is a necessity. It is incredibly easy to lose faith when the road to recovery feels long and winding. You have days where you feel strong, where you think you've finally turned a corner. And then a sudden memory, or a stressful afternoon knocks you right back down to the floor. In those moments, the voice comes back louder than ever, mocking you, telling you that you'll never get better. But healing is not a clean, straight line. It is a slow, spiraling path where you revisit old hurts with a little more wisdom each time. Experiencing pain again doesn't mean your progress has been erased. It just means you are human. And humans take time to integrate their struggles. You are not a broken mirror that can never be put back together without showing the cracks. You are a living, breathing person who adapts, learns, and grows around the wounds. Think of the things you have survived that no one else knows about. Think of the nights you spent staring at the ceiling, wondering how you would make it through the next morning. Yet somehow, you did. You found a way to keep going even when the light was completely gone. That resilience is still inside you, even if it feels buried under layers of exhaustion right now. Your spirit isn't destroyed. It is just deeply, profoundly tired of fighting the wrong battles. Let go of the idea that you need to be perfectly whole before you can deserve peace. You do not need to be fully healed to be worthy of love, happiness, or a quiet mind. You are allowed to be a work in progress. You are allowed to have days where you feel fragile and disconnected. The illusion of being beyond repair only holds power over you when you believe that your current state is your permanent destination. It isn't. This is just a heavy chapter in a very long, beautifully complex book. Give yourself permission to be messy right now. Allow yourself to stop trying to force a recovery that you aren't ready for yet, and just accept where you are. You are still here. You are still breathing. And as long as you have this moment, you have the capacity to rebuild. We spend so much energy trying to hide the parts of ourselves that feel messy or weak. We push them down, hoping they'll disappear, but they just simmer beneath the surface, draining our daily energy. Carl Jung once noted, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that. The patterns that keep exhausting you, the constant people-pleasing, the inability to say no, the relentless perfectionism, aren't just random quirks. They are survival mechanisms. When you refuse to look at why you're running, the running becomes your destiny. To change the direction, you have to sup, turn around, and actually meet the parts of yourself you've been ignoring. It takes a profound amount of courage to sit face to face with your hidden self. We spend our lives building up a presentable exterior, a version of ourselves that is pleasant, productive, and easy for the world to digest. But beneath that polished surface is a whole world of unmet needs, buried anger, and quiet heartbreaks. There is a version of you that is absolutely terrified of being rejected, a part that believes if you aren't constantly doing things for others, you will be abandoned. When you ignore this hidden side, it doesn't just go away. It speaks to you through your chronic exhaustion. through that sudden wave of resentment you feel when someone asks for another favor, and through the deep emptiness that hits you when the room goes quiet. Think of how long that hidden part of you has been waiting in the dark, trying to get your attention. Every time you forced yourself to say yes when your entire being was screaming no, you abandoned a piece of yourself. Every time you brushed off your own sadness because you didn't want to be a burden to anyone else, you locked another door inside your heart. We treat our vulnerabilities like enemies, locking them away in a basement, hoping that if we stay busy enough, we will never have to hear them knock. But that knocking is the very reason you are so incredibly tired. It requires an immense amount of emotional energy to keep a door barred against your own truth. The transition from running away to actually looking inward is the moment everything changes. It begins when you stop looking at your anxiety, your sadness, or your boundary issues as flaws to be eradicated, and start looking at them as messengers. When you feel a sudden, overwhelming surge of frustration over a minor inconvenience, that isn't just random irritability. That is your hidden self waving a red flag, desperately trying to tell you that your boundaries have been crossed for far too long. If you treat that frustration with anger and judgment, you miss the message entirely. You remain stuck in the loop, letting the unconscious run the show, wondering why your life feels like a series of repetitive, draining patterns. Meeting this side of yourself doesn't require a harsh interrogation. It requires a gentle invitation. Imagine sitting down with the version of you that is most afraid, the version that feels too broken to be loved. Imagine looking at that part of yourself not with disappointment or shame, but with the warmth of an old friend who has finally come home. You might discover that the anger you've been hiding is actually just a fiercely protective guard dog, trying to shield a deeply wounded heart that was never allowed to voice its pain. You might find that your constant need to control your environment is just a terrified child trying to create safety in a world that once felt incredibly chaotic. When you begin to understand why you do the things that exhaust you, the judgment starts to melt away. You replace your frustration with a deep, aching compassion for how hard you've been trying to survive. This is where true integration begins. You stop dividing yourself into the good parts you show the world and the bad parts you hide away. You accept the whole picture. You realize that to fully breathe, you must give every single version of yourself, past, present, hidden, and broken, permission to pull up a chair, sit by the fire, and finally be seen without having to apologize for its existence. What does this exhaustion actually look like in real life? It's not always a dramatic breakdown. Most of the time, it's invisible. It's sitting in your car in the driveway for 15 minutes after arriving home, just staring at the dashboard because you can't summon the energy to walk through the front door and face your responsibilities. It's opening a book, reading the same paragraph 4 times, and realizing your mind is a complete blank. It's the way your heart rate spikes when someone asks you a simple question, because any new demand feels like an avalanche. You are spending 90% of your energy just pretending that you have everything under control, leaving you with absolutely nothing left for yourself. We rarely talk about the silent taxes we pay when we live behind a mask. Every morning, you put on your armor before you even step foot outside. You check your reflection, make sure your voice sounds steady, and rehearse your answers so no one can catch a glimpse of the storm underneath. When someone asks how you are, the word good slips out of your mouth automatically, like a reflex, even when your chest feels like it's collapsing under an invisible weight. You smile through the meetings, you nod through the social gatherings, and you offer reassurance to everyone around you. But the cost of that performance is catastrophic. It is paid in the quiet erosion of your vitality. By the time you are finally alone, you don't feel relieved. You just feel hollow, like a ghost haunting your own body. Think about how deeply lonely it is to be envied or loved for a strength that is actively destroying you. When people praise you for being the reliable one, the one who never complains, the one who always figures it out, it feels like a trap. It feels like if you ever show a single crack, if you ever admit that you are drowning, the whole world will stop loving you. So you keep pretending. You match everyone else's pace. You laugh at the right times, and you show up for events you have no emotional capacity to handle. But while you are busy maintaining their comfort, your own inner world is starving. You are giving away pieces of yourself to keep everyone else warm, while you sit freezing in the dark. This constant performance leaves you completely disconnected from your own life. It turns beautiful, ordinary moments into chores. A sunset becomes just a sky. Music becomes just background noise. And a conversation with a loved one becomes a script you are reading just to get through the interaction. You are physically present, but emotionally miles away, locked inside a mind that is constantly calculating how much longer you have to fake it before you can hide again. The energy it takes to suppress your true feelings, to hold back the tears, to stifle the frustration, to pretend you aren't terrified, is the most exhausting work a human being can do. It doesn't leave room for joy, or creativity, or love. It only leaves room for survival. The tragedy of pretending is that it convinces you that the real you is unacceptable. Every time you hide your fatigue or bury your sadness to make things easier for someone else, you send a message to your own heart that says, who you actually are right now is not enough. You teach yourself that you are only valuable when you are useful, pleasant, and unbroken. But that is a lie. The price of belonging to everyone else cannot be the forfeiture of your own well-being. You were never meant to be a statue of perfect resilience. You are a living human being who gets tired, who hurts, and who needs to be held up sometimes instead of always doing the holding. Look at the toll this has taken on you. Look at the permanent tension in your neck, the way you sigh when no one is looking, and the deep, heavy sigh that leaves your lungs the second you are finally behind closed doors. You cannot keep living your life as an actor on a stage. The audience doesn't need a perfect performance. They need you to survive. It is time to stop paying the daily tax of pretending. It is time to let the mask slip, even just a little bit, and allow yourself to say, I am struggling today, and I cannot pretend otherwise. We live in a culture that treats busyness like a badge of honor. We are taught that our worth is directly tied to our productivity. So, when you feel emotionally drained, your instinct is probably to push harder. You think if you just organize your schedule better, or finish that one massive project, you'll finally earn the right to relax. But peace isn't a reward you earn after doing everything perfectly. It's a prerequisite for living well. This relentless drive to be flawless is actually a shield. If you keep moving, you don't have to feel the pain. But you also don't give yourself the chance to recover. Think about the impossible standard you have set for your own life. You expect yourself to be the perfect professional, the perfect partner, the perfect friend, and the perfect caretaker, all while navigating your own silent heartbreaks. When you make a mistake, no matter how tiny, you don't just see it as an error. You see it as a moral failure. You replay it over and over in your head when you're trying to sleep, punishing yourself with a voice that is harsher than anyone else would ever dare to be with you. You have wrapped your entire sense of security around being beyond criticism, because you believe deep down that if you are flawless, no one can reject you, no one can blame you, and no one can hurt you. But perfectionism is a cruel mirage. It keeps moving the finish line. Every time you reach the goal you thought would finally let you breathe, the voice in your head changes the rules. It says, okay, you did that, but look at what else you haven't finished. It is a bottomless pit that drains your spirit and leaves you perpetually starved for validation. You are running a marathon with no end in sight, chasing a version of yourself that simply does not exist, a version of yourself that never feels tired, never slips up, and never needs help. In trying to become a machine that never fails, you are killing the very parts of you that make you human. What would happen if you just stopped trying to be perfect? What if you allowed yourself to do a job that was simply good enough today? The thought probably terrifies you. It makes your chest tighten because you've convinced yourself that if you let your guard down, everything you've built will come crashing down around you. But that fear is a liar. The world does not need your perfection. It needs your presence. When you are entirely consumed by the anxiety of making a mistake, you aren't actually living your life. You are just managing your image. You are missing the actual texture of your days because you are too busy checking items off an endless list of expectations. Dismantling this trap requires you to face the deep discomfort of your own limitations. It means looking at your unfinished tasks, your untidy thoughts, and your unresolved feelings, and choosing to love yourself anyway. It means standing up to that critical voice in your head and saying, I am allowed to be a human being who is still figuring things out. True freedom begins when you realize that your value is inherent. It was there the day you were born, and it is there right now, completely independent of how much you accomplished today or how well you managed your emotions. You do not have to earn your place on this earth by being flawless. Let the shield drop. Let things be a little messy for a while. Let yourself be someone who makes mistakes, who changes their mind, and who occasionally has no idea what they are doing. There is a profound, beautiful relief in admitting that you cannot do it all. When you break the trap of perfection, you finally open up space for genuine healing to begin. You stop treating yourself like a project that needs constant fixing and start treating yourself like a living being that needs tenderness, patience, and a quiet place to simply rest. The pieces of yourself that you think are too damaged are often just the parts that have been neglected the longest. Jung captured this beautifully when he wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort." In simple terms, looking at your deepest wounds and your darkest moments takes immense courage. It's uncomfortable to admit that we are hurt, resentful, or afraid. But avoiding your shadow doesn't make it go away. It just makes it heavier. Healing doesn't mean erasing these parts of your history. It means acknowledging them without judgment so they stop running the show in the background. Think about the traits you try hardest to hide from the world, and even from yourself. Maybe it's a deep well of anger that you've buried because you were always told to be the peacemaker. Maybe it's an intense, aching jealousy of people who seem to have life figured out, or a profound selfishness that you refuse to admit out loud because you want so badly to be seen as generous and kind. We treat these feelings like absolute monsters. We lock them away in the darkest corners of our minds, terrified that if anyone ever saw them, they would turn away from us in disgust. But your shadow isn't evil. It is simply a collection of orphaned emotions that were once too painful or too unsafe for you to express. When you spend your entire life sprinting away from your shadow, you are essentially running away from your own shadow's weight. And that chase is what is draining the absolute life out of you. Every time you feel a sudden, unexplainable wave of sadness, or an intense overreaction to someone else's minor mistake, that is your shadow tapping you on the shoulder. It is saying, "Please, look at me. Stop pretending I don't exist." When you refuse to look, that energy doesn't just evaporate. It turns inward, transforming into a heavy, suffocating anxiety, or a chronic numbness that makes you feel entirely disconnected from the people you love. You cannot find true rest while you are actively warring against a massive part of who you are. It takes an incredible amount of moral effort to stop fighting and just listen. Embracing your shadow means sitting down in the dark with your flaws and your historical pain and choosing not to look away. It means saying to your anger, I see you, and I understand why you are here. You were trying to protect me when no one else would. It means saying to your deepest insecurities, you are allowed to feel afraid, but you don't have to steer the ship anymore. This is the moment where the exhaustion begins to lift. The moment you stop judging yourself for having messy, complicated feelings is the exact moment those feelings lose their terrifying power over your life. Imagine the immense relief of finally having nothing left to hide. Imagine how much energy you will claw back when you no longer have to spend 24 hours a day policing your thoughts, making sure you only present the acceptable, pretty versions of yourself to the world. You are a whole human being, and human beings are inherently contradictory. You can be deeply loving and still feel incredibly angry. You can be a generous person and still need to fiercely protect your own boundaries. You can be strong and still completely fall apart on a Sunday afternoon. Your wounds and your hidden pieces do not make you an unlovable disaster. They make you real. When you bring the shadow out into the open, when you look at it with the eyes of a compassionate friend rather than a harsh judge, the darkness begins to lose its teeth. You realize that what you were running from wasn't a monster at all. It was just a hurt, neglected version of yourself that was desperate for your own attention. Give that part of you permission to finally come in from the cold. Stop dividing yourself into pieces and let yourself be whole. Right now, you need to give yourself permission to breathe. And I mean that thoroughly, both literally and figuratively. Give yourself permission to be an unfinished project. You do not need to have your life completely figured out by next Tuesday. You do not need to apologize to anyone for being tired. If all you did today was keep yourself moving and get through the hours, that is entirely enough. True permission means allowing yourself to step off the track for a moment without feeling a crushing weight of guilt. The world will not fall apart if you take your hands off the wheel for an evening. And if it does shake a little, let it. Your well-being is worth vastly more than a flawless track record of keeping everyone else happy. Think about how often you wait for someone else to tell you it's okay to stop. You wait for a doctor to tell you that your body needs rest. Or you wait for a total collapse before you finally admit you can't keep going. You look for validation from outside, hoping someone will look at your exhaustion and say, "You've done enough. You can rest now." But that external rescue is not coming. The world will keep asking of you as long as you keep giving. The only person who can truly grant you the relief you are starving for is the person looking back at you in the mirror. You have to become your own sanctuary. You have to be the one to look at your tired spirit and say, "We are stopping here. The rest can wait." Absolute permission means letting go of the need to explain yourself. It means deciding to take a night off, cancel plans, or leave a text message unanswered without drafting a long, defensive apology in your head. You don't need a monumental, airtight reason to protect your peace. Being tired is a complete sentence. Wanting a moment of quiet is a valid reason. You have spent your entire life justifying your existence through your utility to others. But you are allowed to just be. Give yourself permission to feel what you actually feel, rather than what you think you should feel. If you feel angry, let yourself be angry. If you feel like crying for no apparent reason, let the tears come. Stop policing your emotions and let them flow through you so they can finally leave. Imagine the sheer weight that would lift from your chest if you stopped treating your life like an ongoing trial, where you are constantly trying to prove your innocence. You don't have to prove that you are a good person by running yourself into the ground. You don't have to earn your right to occupy space on this planet by constantly overextending your boundaries. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to fail to meet someone else's expectations. You are allowed to let a ball drop. When you give yourself absolute permission to be imperfect, the world doesn't end. Instead, something beautiful happens. You finally start to live for yourself, rather than for the version of you that lives in everyone else's head. This permission is not a one-time declaration. It is a daily, sometimes hourly, practice. It is a soft voice that whispers to you when your heart rate starts to climb and your mind begins to race. It tells you, it's okay. We don't have to solve this right now. We can just sit here. It is the choice to choose your own sanity over someone else's comfort. It is the realization that your energy is a finite, precious resource, and you are allowed to keep some of it for yourself. In fact, you must. So, take the pressure off your own chest. Let the deadlines blur for just a little while. Give yourself permission to change your mind, to walk away from things that drain you, and to have absolutely nothing to show for your day other than the fact that you survived it. You are not broken for needing a break. You are just a human being who has been carrying a heavy load for a very long distance. Drop the bag. Unclench your hands. Take a deep, unobstructed breath. And finally, allow yourself to just occupy the moment without asking for anyone else's approval. How do we actually start letting our souls breathe? It doesn't require a massive lifestyle overhaul or a radical transformation. It starts in the tiny, quiet, micro moments of your day. It's choosing to put your phone in another room for an hour so you aren't constantly bombarded by notifications and news updates. It's the decision to sit by a window with a warm cup of tea and do absolutely nothing else but drink it. No planning, no worrying, just tasting the warmth. It's choosing to say, I can't take that on right now, when someone asks for another favor. These small choices are acts of self-reclamation. They are votes you cast for your own survival. When you are deeply exhausted, the thought of trying to fix your life can feel like another exhausting chore on your to-do list. You think you need to go away for a month, change your job, or completely reinvent who you are just to feel okay again. But healing doesn't wait for the perfect circumstances. It happens in the cracks of your ordinary, messy day. It's the 3 seconds you take to close your eyes and feel the cold air filling your lungs before you step into a stressful meeting. It's the conscious choice to let a phone call go to voicemail because you know your mind is too loud to listen to someone else's problems right now. These are not selfish acts. They are small, vital boundaries that keep you anchored to your own humanity. Think about how much of your day is spent reacting to things outside of yourself. You are constantly responding to demands, anticipating what people need from you, and putting out fires. You have become a passenger in your own mind. A small moment of reclamation is when you step back into the driver's seat, even if it's just for 5 minutes. It's walking a little slower down the hallway, refusing to rush when the world is screaming at you to hurry up. It's choosing to put on a song that makes you feel something real, and actually listening to it, not as background noise while you do the dishes, but sitting still, letting the notes wash over you, and allowing yourself to remember that you possess an inner world that deserves to be fed. These moments are quiet rebellions. They are your way of looking at a world that demands your constant output and saying, "No, you cannot have all of me today." When you reclaim a single minute of your time, you are breaking the spell of your exhaustion. You are proving to your nervous system that you are safe enough to pause. Think of how long your body has been waiting for that safety. It has been locked in a state of high alert, waiting for the next blow to fall. When you choose to sit on your porch and just watch the rain fall, without checking your watch or planning dinner, you are sending a message to your heart that says, "We are safe right now. The crisis is over for this moment." We underestimate the power of these tiny shifts. We think because they are small, they don't count. But a mountain is moved stone by stone, and a soul is reclaimed moment by moment. You don't need a grand stage to begin your recovery. You just need the courage to claim the space directly underneath your feet. Start looking for these hidden pockets of time. When you are standing in a long line, instead of looking around in frustration or tapping your foot, use that time to check in with yourself. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Even if the answer is just a deep sigh or a glass of water, honor it. Every single time you choose your own peace over convenience. Every time you choose stillness over pointless busyness, you are healing. You are stitching yourself back together, one tiny thread at a time. You are building a quiet, unshakable fortress inside your own mind that the world cannot touch. It is within these small, beautiful fragments of reclamation that you will find the strength to keep going. You don't have to fix everything today. Just claim this next breath. Let it be yours, and yours alone. We need to completely change how we think about healing. It is not a straight line, and it is certainly not a destination where you suddenly become a perfectly polished, flawless individual who never feels sadness again. Healing is messy. It's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes healing looks like crying on your living room floor because a memory caught you off guard. And that is completely okay. Being healed doesn't mean you were never broken. It means your wounds no longer dictate how you live your life today. Your cracks aren't proof that you are ruined. They are just the places where your story became deeper. We often carry this unspoken belief that if we are truly healing, we should be getting happier and calmer every single day. We expect our progress to look like an upward climb, where each morning is lighter than the last. So when a dark day hits, when you wake up with that familiar, heavy knot in your stomach, or when a minor frustration sends you spiraling into old anxieties, you assume you've failed. You think you're right back at square one, and that all the hard work you've put in was for nothing. But a bad day is not a relapse. It is just a day. Healing means you still experience the storm, but you are learning how to stay anchored while the wind blows, instead of letting it tear you apart. Think about how much pressure you put on yourself to get over things quickly. You tell yourself that you shouldn't still be hurting over a loss from years ago, or that you should be past the betrayal that shattered your trust. You treat your grief like a project, with a strict deadline. But your heart does not keep time the way the world does. True as healing is a slow, quiet process of integration, not an abrupt erasure of your history. It is the act of gently wrapping your current wisdom around your oldest pains. You don't become immune to the hurt. You just build a larger, more compassionate space inside yourself to hold it. Let's dismantle the idea that being healed means being unaffected. The goal isn't to become an unshakable wall that feels absolutely nothing. The goal is to be human, to feel everything fully, and to trust that you can survive the emotional waves when they come. Sometimes, progress is simply noticing that you are hurting. And instead of getting angry at yourself for being vulnerable, you choose to treat yourself with a profound amount of tenderness. Progress is when you feel a familiar sadness creeping in, and you say, "It is okay that I am hurting today. I am safe, and this feeling will pass." That shift from self-judgment to self-compassion is the true definition of a breakthrough. Your history is full of chapters you wish you could rewrite, and moments where you felt completely dismantled. But those broken places do not make you permanent damage. Think of how a shattered piece of pottery can be put back together. Its seams held together with care, making it entirely unique and far more beautiful for having endured the break. Your scars tell a story of survival. They are proof that something tried to pull you under, but your spirit refused to go. You do not need to hide your struggles or wait until you are fully repaired to love who you are. The version of you that is sitting here right now, still trying, still feeling, is incredibly worthy of respect. Stop looking for a finished version of yourself in the distance. There is no final point where you will suddenly be handed a certificate of completion and told you are finally ready to live. You are living right now, in the middle of the mess, in the quiet spaces between the hurt and the hope. Let go of the need for a neat, tidy ending to your pain. Embrace the beautiful, complicated truth that you can be healing and hurting at the exact same time. You are not a ruined masterpiece. You are the artist. And every single mark on the canvas belongs to the depth of your story. As we close this conversation, take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. You have survived every single difficult day you've ever faced, even the ones where you were certain you wouldn't. You are not too damaged to find peace again. You are simply exhausted from trying to carry the weight of a world that was never meant to rest solely on your shoulders. It is safe to lower your guard. It is safe to rest. Step by step, moment by moment, you can find your way back to yourself. You are allowed to just breathe. Finding your way back home to yourself is not a loud, dramatic homecoming. It doesn't happen with a sudden burst of clarity or a grand celebration. It happens in the quietest, softest shifts of your daily life. It is the moment you wake up, and for the first time in months, your very first thought isn't a wave of panic about what you have to accomplish. It's the evening you sit down to rest and realize you aren't feeling a lingering sense of guilt for doing absolutely nothing. This return is a gentle, gradual reclaiming of your own territory. It is you deciding that your inner peace is too valuable to keep trading away for external validation. Think of how long you have been living as a stranger to your own soul. You have spent years looking outward, focusing entirely on what everyone else needed, how everyone else felt, and what the world expected you to become. You became an expert at reading the room, but a complete novice at reading your own heart. Coming back to yourself means turning that care inward. It means asking yourself, how am I doing right now? And actually staying still long enough to hear the honest answer. It is the decision to treat yourself not like a machine that keeps breaking down, but like a weary traveler who has finally walked through the front door after a long, brutal journey in the dark. You might worry that too much time has passed, or that the person you used to be, the one who was creative, light-hearted, and full of joy, is completely gone, swallowed up by the years of struggle. But that version of you was never truly destroyed. It was just waiting for it to be safe enough to come back out. Every boundary you set, every time you choose rest over exhaustion, and every moment you look at your wounds with kindness, you are building that safety. You are showing your inner self that it is finally safe to stop hiding, safe to let go of the hypervigilance, and safe to just exist without the constant pressure to perform. So, let the hurry fade away. There is absolutely no rush. You don't have to become a completely new person by tomorrow morning. Healing is simply a matter of stripping away the layers of expectations, perfectionism, and armor that you had to wear just to survive.